It's one of the most lopsided showdowns in military history. In one corner, you have the German Panther, a 45-ton beast, a predator of the battlefield, feared for its thick armor and a long, powerful 75mm gun that could punch through Allied tanks from over a mile away. In the other corner, weighing in at a mere 14 tons, is the American M22 Locust. It was so light it was designed to be carried by an aircraft. Its armor was so thin, a heavy machine gun could tear it apart. Its main weapon? A small 37mm gun that crews joked was better for knocking on doors than knocking out tanks. By all accounts, this wasn't a fight, it was a mismatch, a guaranteed victory for the Panther. And yet, on a chaotic battlefield in 1945, the unthinkable happened. One of these little locusts, arguably America's weakest tank of the war, came face-to-face with Hitler's best and won. This is the incredible true story of David versus Goliath, a tale of courage, desperation, and a healthy dose of sheer luck. How did this happen? Stick with me as we dive into one of the most unlikely duels of World War II. First, let's get to know our underdog, the M22 Locust. The whole idea behind this tank was airborne assault. The plan was to load these tiny tanks into massive Hamilcar gliders, fly them behind enemy lines, and give paratroopers some much-needed armored support. It sounded great on paper. In reality, the Locust was plagued with problems. It was mechanically unreliable, its armor was paper-thin, and its 37mm gun was obsolete by the time it entered service. It just couldn't handle the German tanks it was supposed to fight. Most Allied commanders took one look at the Locust and said, "No, thanks." It was so underwhelming that the British, who received many under the Lend-Lease program, were the only ones to actually use it in combat. The Americans, the ones who designed and built it, never even deployed it with their own airborne forces. It was, for all intents and purposes, a failed design, a tank destined for the scrapyard of history. But history, as we know, has a funny way of surprising us. Now for the champion, the Panzer V, better known as the Panther. If the Locust was a joke, the Panther was a nightmare. The stage for our incredible duel was set in March 1945. The Allies were pushing deep into Germany in Operation Varsity, the largest single-day airborne operation in history. As part of this massive assault, the British 6th Airborne Division was tasked with crossing the Rhine River. And with them, a handful of M22 Locusts from the 6th Airborne Armored Reconnaissance Regiment. The journey was a disaster from the start. The gliders carrying the tanks were tossed around by turbulence and anti-aircraft fire. Some Locusts broke free from their restraints inside the gliders, causing chaos. Others were delivered to the wrong location, miles from where they were needed. One glider landed nose first, jamming the tank inside. It was a complete mess. Out of the 8 Locusts that took off, only a couple made it into the fight in any meaningful way. It was an inauspicious start for a tank that already had a terrible reputation. It seemed the Locust was destined to fail before it even fired a shot. But amidst this chaos, one Locust, commanded by Lieutenant Harding, managed to get into action. His tiny tank linked up with a company of American paratroopers from the 17th Airborne Division, who were desperately trying to secure a vital road intersection near the village of Wessel. The situation was grim. The paratroopers were pinned down by heavy machine gun fire, and worse, they were being stalked by an unseen German threat. The sounds of heavy tracks and a powerful engine echoed through the woods. It wasn't just any tank, it was a Panther. The paratroopers' light anti-tank weapons, like their bazookas, were mostly ineffective against its thick frontal armor. They were outgunned and facing annihilation. It was at this critical moment that Lieutenant Harding's little M22 Locust trundled onto the scene. The paratroopers must have felt a mix of relief and despair. A tank was here to help. But it was that tank. The tiny, undergunned Locust. It seemed like bringing a pea shooter to a cannon fight. What happened next is the stuff of legend. Lieutenant Harding knew a head-on confrontation was impossible. His 37mm shells would just bounce harmlessly off the Panther's front plate. He had to be smart. He had to be fast. Using the Locust's small size and surprising agility to his advantage, he maneuvered his tank through the wooded terrain, staying out of the Panther's line of sight. The German crew, likely overconfident and focused on the American infantry, didn't spot the little tank flanking them. This was the key. The Panther's strength was its frontal armor, but its sides and rear were significantly weaker. Harding zipped around to the Panther's side. The German giant was a sitting duck, its powerful gun pointing the wrong way. The Locust was now in the perfect position for an ambush. The hunter had become the hunted. The Locust's crew knew this was their only chance. They opened fire. The first few 37mm rounds slammed into the Panther's side armor. While they didn't have the power to punch clean through, they did something else. They struck the tracks and running gear, damaging the Panther's mobility. Then, using high-explosive shells, they targeted the engine deck at the rear. This was a brilliant move. Instead of trying to penetrate the thickest parts of the armor, they aimed for the Panther's vulnerable components. One of these high-explosive shells likely found its mark, starting a fire in the engine compartment. Panic must have set in for the German crew. Trapped in a steel box that was rapidly filling with smoke and flames, their powerful tank now a death trap, they had no choice. The hatches flew open and the crew bailed out, scrambling for their lives, only to be cut down or captured by the waiting American paratroopers. It was over. The mighty Panther, Hitler's finest, was disabled and abandoned, defeated not by a bigger gun, but by clever tactics and a well-aimed shot from America's weakest tank. The impact of this single engagement was immense for the men on the ground. With the Panther neutralized, the German resistance in that sector crumbled. The paratroopers, saved from certain destruction, could now advance and secure their objectives, clearing the way for the main Allied force. Lieutenant Harding, his quick thinking and brave actions demonstrated a fundamental truth of warfare. Technology isn't everything. A superior weapon is useless if you are outmaneuvered and outsmarted. The Locust crew used their tank's only advantages, its small size and speed, to perfection. They understood their own weaknesses and their enemies, and they exploited them brilliantly. It's a classic underdog story, a testament to the fact that courage, ingenuity, and a little bit of luck can overcome even the most insurmountable odds. The M22 Locust may have been a failed design in the grand scheme of things, but on that one day in March 1945, for that one crew, it was the most effective tank in the world. So, what became of the M22 Locust? After Operation Varsity, its combat career was essentially over. The British quickly retired the few they had, and the model was declared obsolete. It never fired another shot in anger. Today, it remains a curious footnote in the history of armored warfare, a tank mostly remembered for its shortcomings. Yet this single incredible story of the Locust versus the Panther elevates it from a mere failure to a legend. It serves as a powerful reminder that in war, it's not always the size of the tank in the fight, but the size of the fight in the crew. The story of Lieutenant Harding and his men proves that even the most underestimated tool, in the right hands at the right moment, can change the course of a battle. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey back to the battlefields of 1945. It's stories like these that show the true human element behind the machines of war. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more amazing tales from history, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. What other unlikely military matchups would you like to see me cover? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.